Hello and welcome to Who Are You, a Babylon 5 watchcast, hosted by two friends who have gotten to know each other over the last year. Hey! While re-watching one of their favorite shows from their childhood, Babylon 5. I'm Xhafer.
And I'm Laura.
And this is it! 1 year! We've been releasing episodes for a year.
It's episode 50, and because we take a 2-week break between the seasons, this happens to be 1 year.
Yeah, completely unplanned, based off the number of episodes and other stuff we've done. But hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm excited. It lines up perfect.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. It's a year of releasing episodes already and a year and a half some of recording and getting to know each other. But that's exciting.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like it's been that long.
It doesn't, but the pandemic has really made time not matter at all.
That's true.
So
that's very true.
I feel like, well, one, biologically, your experience of time shortens as you get older due to a hormone in your brain. This is a real thing. You can Google it.
Well, this makes a lot of sense, though.
The older you get, the less of this hormone that it changes how you experience time your brain produces, which means time feels like it's progressing faster. So that, I just feel like, has been exacerbated by the pandemic 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Like maybe all our brains are operating differently.
Yeah. Although apparently this is also a hormone that eventually you'll be able to take.
I don't know that I want to make things feel longer.
Yeah. Well, remember how car rides always sucked when you were a kid and they don't seem that bad now?
I was just thinking about that. The car rides, and then like just everything as a kid felt like it took a long time.
Yes. This is the reason.
Yeah. Like waiting for Christmas. Remember that? Or like waiting for your birthday. Something like that.
Just waiting in general. I feel like I don't have any time to wait.
Yeah. I don't know if I need that hormone replacement. We'll see.
Maybe a little bit. I might take a little bit. Like if you can get me back to how time felt when I was like 17, here for it. I don't want it when I was 6 though. That's too much.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that this episode doesn't feel super long.
Oh, what a good segue. But before we don't have an episode to talk about. We've got the season recap to talk about. But we do have to rate last week's episode because we totally forgot to do it. We just went off the air, forgot to rate it.
We sure did.
And I don't even have one in my notes. I'm guessing you may or may not. I don't know. But if we both didn't, that totally explains why we just skipped over it.
Yeah, I didn't put a rating in my notes. It's true. I think that we both kind of got into talking about how important and enjoyable it was, right?
Yes.
So I think that kind of lends itself to one of our higher ratings, obviously.
Oh, 100%. They killed Xhafer, so it's a 5 out of 5 for me.
Babylon 5 season ender, I think, is usually a 5 out of 5. Like, you get some good...
They pull out all the stops.
Yeah, you get the meat, you get a cliffhanger ending, which we certainly got with season 1 and, the death of the president. And here we get with Warren Kiefer's footage of, the shadow ship that he sought out and died for.
I don't know that there's a bad season finale in Babylon 5, which I know is a bit controversial because there's a lot of people who don't like season 4's finale, which I won't talk about at all because spoilies if you happen to be listening along. But it is weird and different, and there's a very specific reason for that I will discuss when we get there.
Right.
In a year or something. But I like that episode. And the season 5 finale is fantastic. The season 3 finale, I actually don't remember anything about at this moment, but I'm going to assume it's good. And if I'm proven wrong in 6 months, we'll figure it out then.
That's where you leave them wanting more.
Right. Ugh, great episode.
It's a 5 out of 5.
So, 5 out of 5 for me. All right. Now that we've appeased the people who, should we ever get enough listeners to warrant a wiki that they keep track of these things?
That's very optimistic.
It's unrealistically optimistic. But hey, we have a lot of fun. Also, this is an anniversary. Also, we just hit 10,000 listens. I don't think I told you that yet. That happened a couple days ago.
Hooray! Thank you, 10,000 listeners. Well, 10, not listeners,
listens. It's crazy.
There's probably one person sitting there just listening over and over.
Constantly. It's Ben. Thanks, Ben.
We love you, Ben.
All right, so season 2 recap. We're going to follow pretty much the same format we did last time we did this. We're going to talk about themes. We have a couple of episode things we're going to talk about, and then we'll get into the Who is the One, where Laura and I will go back and forth asking each other questions about our favorite aspects of the season.
Yeah.
So themes, you want to start us off? Do you got something in mind?
I have some theme ideas. You know, last season we were laying a lot of groundwork, right? In season 1. In season 2, we built a lot on that foundation. And I think the things that we built biggest upon on that foundation of themes, for one, the shadows. We learned a lot more about the shadows. We saw a lot more about their reach, their capabilities. Yeah. We saw a lot more actual shadow ships doing shadow ship stuff. And then we really built up the Centauri-Nern conflict in this season. So we built the shadow involvement with Londo, Mr. Morden, and we got a lot about the Narn and just that what capabilities they don't have compared to the Centauri, and their ability to stand against that shadow involvement was none.
Yeah.
And then the other big one for me was the whole xenophobia that we really established from Earthers in season 1. Well, we expanded on some of that xenophobia, and we also expanded on internal conflict. You know, we had our main characters, our command staff getting involved in this kind of conspiracy against the conspiracy. We know that whatever happened to President Santiago in season 1, that assassination was not an accident. You know, it was an actual assassination. Our main characters start uncovering some of that. And we see the things that President Clark is doing to change EarthGov, and feeling our main characters rubbing against that, what with the Night Watch, the Ministry of Peace, some of these things that show up in big ways in certain episodes. So those are the main themes that I feel like we really expanded on. What about you, Xhafer?
Sacrifice was a huge thing this season. And it's related to a lot of that. It is the cost of victory.
Yeah.
Is really what we hear a lot of kind of foreshadowing about this season, knowing that difficult times are ahead. And it feels like difficult times are here. And they are in a lot of ways. And for all of the like foreshadowing to be all like, oh, this hasn't even started yet, is on purpose terrifying. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like, how much worse could it get? And for the answer from any kind of foreshadowy figure that we get this season to be, oh, you don't even know how bad it's going to be. So knowing that, one of the big themes relates to a lot of that stuff. But I have one that I kind of picked out, and I haven't really heard anyone say this about Babylon 5 yet. I have not listened to any of our friendly podcasts that we're friends with because I don't want them to color my opinion of things. Right. And I know that I will end up subconsciously cribbing something. So if this is in one of those, please tell me, because I want to hear someone else's thoughts on this. But I think one of the big things is the unreliable narrator. And I mean that in a couple of ways. I mean it in kind of the direct way, like how we see in And Now for a Word.
Yeah, it's very obvious in that episode, isn't it?
Yes. And I think the importance of that episode is the framework that lends it to other things. Because so much of this season is about those in power lying to the people they are in power over. And we see it all over the place. We get it early in the season with General Franklin lying to his troops about the invasion they're about to commit.
Yeah.
We see it, the lying and the denial of the issue in Markab society leading to their extinction being the overall cost. And I think the importance of that episode in the overall framing is showing exactly where this path goes. Because we get so much of it with the Ministry of Peace and Night Watch and not being able to trust these people. And then also the Vorlons. We get a ton of it this season where it's just like, these are the people that are supposed to lead us in the great conflict to come. They're our elder race. They're our shepherd. But also, surprise, they've been fucking with your society for thousands of years because they're angels.
Yeah.
And also, they came to Earth in the 1800s, and the one dude they picked was Jack the Ripper.
Right.
Who the fuck are they actually?
Right. Yeah.
They are unreliable. Everyone in power in every source we see in this season is unreliable. And if they were reliable, they die, like the Centauri Emperor.
Yes. Rest in peace.
Like President Santiago.
Yes.
Like, they all get killed, and all of these unreliable people find themselves in power at the same time. And it all coalesces at once this season.
I hate to say it, but you know what this sounds like? It reminds me of, it's very Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Well, no, that's 100% fair comparison too.
The good guys, you can't get too attached.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone who is good has died. Not entirely, but everyone who was good, who was in a position to stop the things that are coming, even Sinclair. Like, obviously we know that change was not made for plot reasons.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you can't go back and make that a plot thing, which totally happens this season. Because we'll talk about it when we get to some stuff later. But there's all kinds of things that Sinclair would have handled very differently.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's all there. It's all pointing towards this one thing. And I don't have a better term for it than unreliable narrator. I did not study story structure.
There might be like an official literary
there might be a better term for it. I'm sure there is. And I'm sure I will get a message from Ben's wife, who is a English teacher, about
She's like, the thing you're looking for is this.
The term you wanted was this. And I'm all like, thank you, is what's going to happen. But it's all over the place this season. And that's so important for what's coming, for like season 4, like the midpoint of season 4. It's so important.
Yeah, just put a pin in that. Just
exactly
keep it handy, guys.
Yeah, just keep it in the back of your mind. Okay, so we have some viewer responses about season 2 that we're going to read, and then we'll talk about our favorite and least favorite episodes. So speaking of number one fan Ben, he did send us a response. I feel like we're doing the podcast at you right now, Ben. Other listeners, I want you to know we value every single one of you.
We sure do. A lot of you we haven't met in person, though.
I don't have a standing hangout with many of you at my house on Wednesday to come watch wrestling and record another podcast. So if we had that.
Possibility is always there. It's always there.
Anyways, Ben sent us a lovely letter. Hello to the Londo and Xhafer of Babylon 5 podcasting.
I don't know how to take that.
For you, a compliment, for me, an insult, knowing the source.
Okay. Moving on.
As someone who started B5 with a little bit of foreknowledge due to being friends with Xhafer, season 2 was an interesting transition. With the start of the season losing Commander Sinclair, who I had found myself really liking in season 1, and found myself really jarred when Sheridan arrived. I'll be honest, it took me most of the season to warm up to him, which jarred with some of the established the show gets good when Sheridan shows up narrative I had heard before starting. My slow warming up to him aside, season 2 has some absolutely amazing storytelling. We get a really long downfall of Londo as we watch him make mistake after mistake, and unlike other villainous characters, we get to watch him get told he's making mistakes, and he knows. We also get to watch Xhafer and the Narn suffer the side effects of losing a war, completely unable to admit their incoming defeat and avoid the ramifications. We get the much mocked, though I enjoyed it, Lieutenant Xhafer storyline peppered throughout the season, which I really think is the best of what B5 does. A story that could have filled a 3-episode arc instead gets spread throughout the entirety of a season of television. We get several of the best episodes of the show during the season, and it was really great going through it with the pod. Thank you for the great episodes, and onward to season 3. Signed, the President Clark of podcast fans.
I'm not sure how to take that either, Ben. I think we need to start worrying about Ben meddling in our podcast affairs. He's President Clark.
That's fair. Okay, I got some feedback on the Discord as well.
Yeah, do share.
Shellock, a friend of the podcast, sent in, I hope this is not too late. I totally see why JMS resented and did not use Xhafer. But I imagine a world where he embarrassed a squad leader to not always have Garibaldi, Sinclair, Ivanova, or Sheridan lead the Star Furies, and there was some good story left on the table. Otherwise, I'm really enjoying the pod and the perspective. It's scary how relevant some of the plot lines are today, and even more so given when they aired, be it pandemics or radical parties taking over the world. Also, season break movie that is a wacky parody, Star Wrecked. Also excited for season 3 theme, Best theme ever. I agree.
I can't wait.
Symbolic Vorlon also sent us some feedback. Season 2 has my go-to episode of B5 if I'm only going to watch one episode. The poorly named They're All the Honor Lies has a plot I enjoy and some of my favorite comedy bits. Season 2 strikes me as the season of failure. Kosh is forced to reveal himself before he wants to. Sheridan keeps hoping that finding proof that Clark had Santiago killed will somehow stop the fascist takeover of Earth. Zach joins Night Watch. No one figures out how to save the Picari. Everything about Talia. Even the successes are failures. Lando gets to bomb the Narns back to the Stone Age, but he's more horrified than happy. The biggest step forward in the Shadow War is Kiefer getting himself killed and his recording picked up by ISN, revealing the shadow ships, something Delenn was quite insistent would be a bad thing. It's not my favorite season, but it is a lot of my favorite bits. Even though the acting is better, I still miss Sinclair. Sheridan may be a soldier, but Sinclair seemed to have a lot more wisdom. Why hasn't Ivanova quit yet? She's like the Rodney Dangerfield and Jabberjaw the Shark. She gets no respect.
Yeah, for real.
Mm-hmm.
Great thoughts. Great thoughts. Okay, so I did ask our editor to throw in some thoughts because he's always behind the scenes and doesn't get to comment except through drops on our episodes or on the show. And his thoughts were that Andreas should have won an Emmy for season 2. You know, he does
100%.
He does an amazing job of portraying the elder statesman who's led his people through one revolution/resistance, and now he's going to have to do it again. And the Coming of Shadows was an amazing piece of writing that works very well, even if you haven't seen the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about that on that episode, that you could kind of drop in and everything that goes down in that episode is very compelling and makes you want to know more.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks everyone for the feedback. As always, we appreciate it. If you have anything else you want to say, go ahead and throw it over to us at whoareyoub5@gmail.com. And we'll do a mailbag segment a couple weeks into season 3.
Yeah.
But for now, let's talk about some episodes, Laura.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite episode this season you want to talk about?
I do think I have a favorite episode this season, but first I want to give some runner-up acknowledgments to some that are special place in my heart.
Okay.
So my runners up for favorite episode would kind of be 2 episodes that they took something that was a story device that was really popular at the time that all this was written, and they made it into a Babylon 5 story. So we've got Gropos, the war story. It's told in a certain kind of way. That was really special to me and very memorable. And Now for a Word took that whole Dateline 2020 kind of news show that was just all over in the 90s. And my parents watched all of them, and made it into a Babylon 5 story. And I thought those were really special moments of season 2 that I liked a lot. Very memorable, but they just couldn't quite get to favorite episode for me, but I wanted to give them some love. For me, my one favorite episode would be Coming of Shadows.
Yeah.
And I think that was an award winner for reasons,
Yes.
obvious reasons. So much happened that was so important for the plot, really drove that story forward.
100%.
What about you, Xhafer?
I will also throw a shout out to And Now for a Word. It's a fantastic episode and just so good. It's so well done. But I think my favorite episode of the season is Geometry of Shadows.
Oh, okay. Do tell.
So that's the early season one with the Techno Mage.
Oh, yes.
And it's so good. It's got so much good veer in it, but it also has, and we'll get to it when we do our Who Was the Ones, but it's got my favorite quote from the season.
Oh, fantastic.
And just the character of Ulrich and the idea of techno mages in general is something so interesting to me. It's always
know more.
You do. And you don't get a lot.
Yeah.
Even in Crusade, where a techno mage is like one of the main characters of the show.
So they didn't all go away, I guess. Or they came back.
Well,
I haven't seen Crusade. I think we've been over that. So
okay. All right. Well, what was your least favorite episode this season?
My least favorite episode, and there was so much good this season. It's almost hard to pick a least favorite episode, but mine would be. I got
one easy.
Yeah. I started looking over the list and it popped out to me right away. The Long Dark, not a good look for Franklin throughout the whole episode.
For sure.
Yeah, just really bad sci-fi doctor tropes.
It's all right. I'm a doctor.
You know,
Mhm.
and from the 90s. And I think that maybe they're the crux of the plot, which is, you know, that we've got this ship that was out here for a long time and somebody wakes up on it. It's a good idea. It's a good story plot, but the execution with the doctor fell really flat for me.
Yeah.
So that would be my least favorite episode of the season.
Well, I'm gonna honorable mention Gropos here.
Okay.
I know you just honorable mentioned it for favorite. I did have a lot of feelings on Gropos, and I will say it is very good at making me feel bad, but that's not why I don't want to. I didn't have fun watching that episode. I didn't feel entertained. I just got stressed.
Yeah.
But that's not my actual pick is Spider in the Web. I think is probably the worst episode of the season.
Okay, you're gonna have to remind me of that one.
Oh, remember the one where they send someone to kill Talia?
Oh, right.
Even though she's a sleeper agent for them?
Yeah.
It's literally the same organization.
Yeah, that is a weird thing to introduce.
Yep, and it doesn't really come back ever either.
I think those two are right in a row too, The Long Dark and Spider in the Web. They're very close to one another.
Yeah, I think they're in that like 7, 8, 9 stretch of the season without having it in front of me.
Yeah, no, that does just kind of serve to like confuse the whole Psychor plots. It doesn't make anything clearer. Yeah.
All right. So we did this one last time too, is the Underdog episode. So having seen the series before, we both have fond memories of certain episodes, and we have some not so fond memories of certain episodes. What is an episode that you were dreading going into, but ended up really enjoying when you watched it?
This might sound kind of surprising, especially given like all we've gone through in the past couple of years with an actual global pandemic.
Oh no.
I was really dreading Confessions and Lamentations.
Yeah.
I remember being a child and it making me cry. And as an adult, it did make me cry. I was surprised by its prescience, its relevance. I wouldn't have, if we'd watched this at any other time, I still would have considered it a good episode, but I don't think I would have been as surprised by it as I was. So for me, it was an underdog. I was dreading it because I remembered what this is about and what happens to everyone. And it still made me sad. It did, but I thought it was so strong, even if some of the science was a little wishy-washy now that we're all a little more exposed to germ science, virus science,
Yeah.
It really surprised me. I thought I was going to hate every second of it, and I did not. So what about you? What's your underdog?
My underdog episode this season is Comes the Inquisitor.
Oh, okay.
So I really liked it on this rewatch. And on my last rewatch, I wasn't, as I've admitted a number of times, I was not really paying super close attention to the show. I was just kind of burning my way through it, streaming it to just watch it. And I thought on that rewatch that, oh God, Jack the Ripper, this is hokey. It's kind of weird, torture porny at times. And it just didn't vibe with me at all.
Yeah, yeah.
And on the rewatch and paying a lot closer attention, it's about Delenn and what she is willing to sacrifice. It's about building that real strength between her and Sheridan. It's about making you question who the Vorlons are and what they're actually what their actual intentions are. And the Jack the Ripper bit is kind of just like, it's what I remembered going in. And I forgot that we get like one half-assed, like, all they remember is Jack is the only thing they say, and it's the last line of the episode. So it wasn't even like they were beating you up with it the entire time. And I was really surprised by that. And I really enjoyed it on this rewatch.
Okay, I'll accept that.
All right. Well, now we get to go to our buddy Zathras. Or was it Zathras? Or maybe it was Zathras.
It might have been Zathras.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you got it.
Not the one.
And ask, who is the one? All right. So, first up, Laura, who is the one character that best represents this season?
In some ways, this is the hardest question, I think, because there's so much that you could pick. For me, the one character that best represents this season would be, I think, Londo, because he drives so much of the plot with his actions. And this man, we watch him over and over in the episodes where he is faced with some sort of ethical dilemma or a big choice. He's reminded by his subordinate, Veer, several times, you don't have to do this. You don't have to make this choice. But he's driven by this crazy sense of history and pride. You might even call it patriarchy, that we have to return to this glory. We have to do these things. And he doesn't see his own personal power in this situation, that he could walk away from certain things.
Yes.
And even when he's told explicitly, perhaps because this person is underneath him, doesn't have the same societal power, does not listen to them, does not see, he thinks this person couldn't possibly understand, perhaps because they're in a different position. And he just over and over again chooses poorly and makes some really monstrous choices with his power. He's probably you talked about in this season, there was a lot of, you can't trust the people at power. And he's the one we've gotten closest to, right? We liked Londo in season 1. We saw him chumming it up with Garibaldi. We saw him, being kind of a lovable scamp who was on the downswing and on the downside of his career and drinking and coasting. And we fell in love with his antics. And now he's becoming a monster.
Yeah.
So for me, he is the one character that represents this season.
100%.
So tell me, Xhafer, who has the one best quote from this season?
Ulrich the Technomage. And it's actually very closely related to what you were just talking about with Londo.
Okay.
It is their interaction in Space TSA when he's on his way out, where he tells Londo he's been touched by in darkness. I see it as a blemish that will grow in time. I could warn you, but you would not listen. I could kill you, but someone else would take your place. So I do the only thing I can. I go. And then he's just like, oh, I believe it is an endorsement you wanted, a word or two, a picture to send to the folks back home, confirming that you had a destiny before you. And Londo says, yes, it was just a thought, nothing more. And Ulrich says, well, take this for what little it will profit you. As I look at you, Ambassador Malari, I see a great hand reaching out of the stars. The hand is your hand. And I hear the sounds of billions of people calling your name. And Londo goes, my followers, and he responds, your victims.
Man, we did not talk about these two things, but those dovetailed really well.
Yes.
Man.
That's episode 2 or 3 of season 2.
Yeah, it's at the very beginning.
And just keeps going.
Yep, very foreshadowy.
All right, Laura, who is the one best guest star this season?
Okay, so this season did have a few memorable ones. I feel like they're front-loaded at the season. For instance, in Geometry of Shadows, the Technomage is a fantastic guest star. For me, the one best guest star, I'll pick Paul Winfield, who was General Franklin.
Okay.
He's a very memorable guy, and he puts so much into the Franklin character. And I'm talking about Dr. Franklin here. Like, we really get to understand and learn a lot about Dr. Franklin through his father.
Yes.
And through their interactions. And I always love a good complicated dad relationship to look at in media. And they definitely have a complicated one with being a military family, and not just a military family. That comes with all kinds of layers in itself, right? But he is the general. He's one of the famous generals. He's one of the big guys, the big wigs.
Yeah.
And that is a very complicated relationship to have, especially when your son chooses to go into a career of saving all life and you have spent your life fighting life. So other types of life. Yeah. Very interesting. What about you? Who is your one best guest star?
Gotta give a shout out to Dwight Schultz acting his ass off in The Long Dark. I agree, it's not a particularly good episode. It's Franklin's behavior in it is completely just unbearable. But the scenes we get with Amos, whatever, it's spelled amiss, but it's pronounced something.
Amos? I'm not sure.
Is all great. Dwight Schultz is just loving the moment, living in it, just screaming his brains out, having a blast.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's frequent flyer in Star Trek, right? He plays
Yeah.
such unique characters. He is probably the biggest guest star get of the season
Yeah.
for me.
All right, Laura, who is the best one-off character?
My favorite one-off that we see it once in this season, and I don't remember if she comes back, and it doesn't really matter because she was so memorable and important, is Timov. In that the Soulmates episode where we see Londo's 3 wives, all very distinct ladies, all very interesting in their own way. But Timov has the most spunk and fire, and
Mm-hmm.
even the venom. She is a feisty little lady, and I love everything about her. She was my favorite one-off character. I would love if she comes back later. I just don't remember if she does. I feel like maybe once we get to the Centauri homeworlds would be a great time. Just don't remember if that happens or not. But she's amazing. I love that fighting spirit within her.
Yeah.
What is your one best bit in the season? We like to highlight that this is a very funny show with lots of funny moments. So
Yes.
pick one.
All of the green and purple Drazi stuff
Yeah.
is hilarious, especially with Ivanova just becoming green leader and making everyone on the green team become purple team.
You're all gonna look smashing.
Right. It's such a good moment and such a fun solution to that problem.
Yeah, that is a great episode for her. I don't even remember the other parts of that episode. I loved her, and the way they work in the fact that she did have a, broken foot or broken leg. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
She's on crutches. She's doing this awful job, and she wraps it up really well.
Yeah.
That's a great bit.
All right. Well, I'll turn that back over to you, Laura. What is your favorite bit? What is the one best bit this season?
I really enjoy the merch bit because it really was very self-aware about sci-fi communities and what we do with our favorite franchises.
Mm-hmm.
And we want everything to be licensed, and we want a bunch of merch. And I'm absolutely there. I want all the dolls.
I've got 4 of the action figures up behind me on the wall right now.
Yep. I think that after this episode, there's so much of the community that wanted that teddy bear, Bear Belongs 5, all about it. We all want the models. We all want the ships.
Mm-hmm. Give me that merch.
Yeah, I mean, we've even brought the merch into this show. Like, that's how important it is to us as human beings. Like, I love that the show was self-aware with that.
Mm-hmm.
What is for you the one best actor living it up moment? What is your favorite scene?
This goes back to your one-off. I'm going to give it to Timov. Specifically, there is a scene where in MedLab after she donates the blood, where she is just so done with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good. And just Jane Carr just living it up. Also, she was a friend of Peter Jurassic. They've done another show before this together. So seeing them go back and forth. And she was just loving it the whole time, clearly. It was great.
Yeah, she was fantastic. And that moment was great.
How about you? What is your best actor living it up moment?
I guess that we just really like the feisty lady moments on this show, because my best actor living it up moment is when Talia loses her mind after the other personality is revealed. Is it the control personality? I forget.
Mm-hmm.
With all that convoluted psycho stuff. But when she's just screaming at everyone, she's being restrained. We get her sexy hair that indicates she's now evil.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just so heartless and spicy. And I think that Andrea Thompson had a lot of fun with that. I think that she really got to just let it all out.
Yeah.
Knowing that this was her character leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I got an interesting one for you, Xhafer.
Yeah.
Because we certainly critiqued Mr. Garibaldi's homeschool security style.
We've thrown some shade. Well deserved.
Yes. So what is the one moment that you wished anybody but Garibaldi was in charge of security?
It happens kind of early in the season, but a head of state is assassinated on Babylon 5. It's kind of iffy if the Centauri Emperor, if Emperor Turin dies of old age or not. But for him to pass at the exact same moment the Prime Minister is assassinated,
Yeah, that's
there's no way
suspicious.
that's coincidence. And the Prime Minister died, it's like at literally the exact same moment. That was meditated. He was poisoned or something. Rifa totally killed him. And for that to happen 7 or 8 episodes after you just let the Earth president get bombed after passing through B5, like, not a good track record, Mr. Garibaldi, with visiting heads of state. So I'd like to see anyone else in charge, because they don't even acknowledge it. It's like nothing happened when the Centauri Emperor dies. They're just sad.
Yeah.
It's like, come the fuck on.
Yeah, they're like, well, he was old. Well, old people can still get whacked. Just say.
All right. Well, let's give a shout out to the Podcasting Guild and their review of Babylon 5. They just started season 2, and they're referring to Sheridan as Captain's stepdad.
Yeah.
So in honor of that, I'm going to ask you, Laura, what's your best stepdad Sheridan moment?
Yeah, because last recap, as you skipped that or don't remember, we had our best Sinclair dad moment because he was our dad, right? And now we've got stepdad in charge. I think the most quintessential stepdad moment, or like stereotypical stepdad thing that one could do, is come in and say, this thing that you've been doing, you have to stop doing that. You can't do this hobby anymore. I will not allow it. And Captain Sheridan goes after Warren Kiefer's little expeditions out into hyperspace looking for his ghost and doesn't give him any explanation. Just says, you will not do that anymore. And we all know, because we are viewers and we know the reasons behind Sheridan's logic, but poor Kiefer doesn't know. And that is just a very mean stepdad thing to do. Say, you can't do your hobby anymore. And so I thought that was a very, it dovetailed nicely with the idea of Sheridan as our stepdad.
All right.
So, Xhafer.
Yes.
What is the one best moment in this episode where you got goosebumps?
Goosebumps. I would have to say when we see Lando's reflection over Narn as they're using the gravity drivers. I literally paused, looked down, and had goosebumps at that moment.
Aw.
Yeah. It's just like seeing the weight of everything hit him at once.
The regret in that face and in that reflection.
The fear. Yeah.
The understanding that you've totally stepped out of beyond your league.
Yeah. Well, how about you? Did you have a moment where you got a goose or chicken bumps, depending on what part of the world you're in?
I do believe my moment is in the same episode.
It was a heavy episode.
It was a very heavy episode. Coming of Shadows gets a lot of love, but this one also is a big deal. This is the Long Twilight Struggle, right? It comes later, and it's Jakar's speech when he is being told the Centauri's demands and that he is no longer an ambassador. He's merely a citizen, and he basically can't leave Babylon 5 because he had requested sanctuary there, and Sheridan is granting it. And it's when he says, no dictator, no invader can hold an imprisoned population by force of arms forever. There is no greater power in the universe than the need for freedom. Against that power, tyrants and dictators cannot stand. The Centauri learned that lesson once. We will teach them again. Although it take 1,000 years, we will be free. And we've seen that quote a lot, just even in this last year with the situation going on in Russia and Ukraine. It almost immediately started popping up. And it's just such a universal idea. And it really got to me.
Yeah, understandably so.
Okay, Xhafer, lightening it back up a little. Who is the one B plot character? Somebody who we see just very little of in kind of a side on the episode who should have gotten more screen time.
I'm going to throw this out to Guinevere Corey, Sheridan's lawyer from the episode where he was going to be prosecuted. Of course, Julie Caitlin Brown, who played Natoth in season 1. Every scene she's in, she's very commanding and it's great. But she comes in like 2/3 into the way of the episode and is made irrelevant very quickly as the plot
It's a
starts
shame.
to wrap itself up. Like, he just doesn't need a lawyer because this is all getting taken care of off the books. And
A
I
real
just
shame.
really would have loved for her to have been there, like, immediately. Like, she was a lawyer on the station or got dispatched significantly earlier just to get some more screen time with her, because she was a fucking delight.
Yeah. I mean, there's room on this show for a lawyer character somewhere, right? Like,
For sure.
Babylon 5 is a big fucking deal. It needs a lawyer.
They tried making a judge in season 1.
Right. I remember Ombudsman, but then they killed him. Ombuds Wellington, right?
Yeah.
We killed him. Oh, well. It was nice to know there was an idea of a legal system in this universe.
Yeah. All right, Laura, who is the one character who showed the most growth this season?
I mean, we could take this all the way back to the first question and argue for Londo. It's growth is not always a good thing, right? You can grow in a bad direction, but I'm going to take it in a better place. And I think the most growth in this season is Jakar.
Okay.
Because we see him go through a lot, and we see Andreas really act it up over various episodes. We see him being really humbled. We see him having to fight for his right to leadership. We see his leadership questioned quite a bit by his own fellow Naren on the station, it seems like. And we see him go through a big transformation. I think, was it the last episode that we talked about this? It was very recent.
Yeah.
That we both felt like Jakar had really turned in this season from that kind of comical, snidely whiplash kind of villain in, the very first of season 1. And he's really become an underdog that we really want to root for.
100%.
Oh, and it was his moment with Garibaldi where he had the turn. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, when he didn't disappoint Garibaldi.
Yeah. So for me, the character showing the most growth is Jakar. Who is the one character showing the most growth for you, Xhafer?
Well, I think you've got the correct answer for the overall season. But in the interest of talking about something else, Sheridan really comes into his own over the course of the season. And not just as he feels like the captain of the station, but also he grows significantly. He comes in and he's kind of this like hotshot military guy who's kind of a conspiracy nut. And he has an existing relationship with Ivanova, but he doesn't really have much of else with anyone. He steps
especially not the aliens. Yeah.
Yeah. He saves Garibaldi's life. Yeah. Well, that's actually a super good point too. He has kind of an existing relationship with some of the League of Non-Aligned Worlds from his days on the Agamemnon, but the Minbari hate him.
Yeah. He has a bad reputation there for sure.
And so for his growth, and also just like his growth personally with learning to trust a Minbari and become friends with a Minbari and really putting himself out there and doing that stuff and becoming more cultured and becoming more of a citizen of the station than a visiting military captain.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Last question. What is the one moment we wished Sinclair was still here for?
This is maybe an odd choice, but I really wish we could see how Comes the Inquisitor would have gone with Sinclair. Because Sinclair and Sheridan have very different vibes, right? Sheridan's a little bit more confrontational, a little bit more aggressive almost. You mentioned before that Sinclair had a real wisdom feel about him. So I would be curious to see how he would have handled that with Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
Sheridan kind of comes in guns a-blazing to rescue Delenn. How would Sinclair do that? I'm just very curious.
He probably would have been there the whole time.
Yeah, he would have been there in Delenn's place. He would be the one being inquisited.
I think so. I think that would be the one that Kosh is more interested in compared to Delenn.
Yeah, that's a good point. You could play it as Delenn is the more trusted one and Kosh is coming to examine Sinclair instead. Yeah, okay.
Because Sheridan's so new, he's kind of... He's not out of the picture because he's doing those sessions with Kosh, but that's something that Sinclair didn't have. And so I feel like he would be more interested in testing Sinclair than Sheridan, for sure.
Yeah, good point.
That's it for season 2.
Yeah, what a journey.
It's a great season. I think it's one of my favorites. I mean, they're all my favorites except for 5. I really enjoyed season 1 going back I liked it a lot more than I initially did.
Yeah, same.
Season 2, I can say the same thing for, and I liked season 2.
Okay. Yeah, I've always liked season 2. I really enjoyed watching it with a little more critical eye of some of our main characters.
Mm-hmm.
I remember feeling as a child just complete and total trust in the system and Sheridan's actions and Garibaldi's actions. And, we've had a lot of examination as a culture in the last 20 years of power and systems. And it's been interesting to look and see, like, oh, wait, all these things that were coded as, oh, Sheridan's a badass, Garibaldi's a badass, and just looking and being like, actually, no. Sometimes being a badass is not good or going to work out. And really re-examining that was interesting. And, I did kind of realize that my original assumption of it gets good when Sheridan shows up. No, it was good before Sheridan showed up. And then you kind of got to push back on him a little bit as a character and re-examine some of his actions and words and choices.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Season 2, lots of changes, but lots of build for what's coming. And we got season 3, the point of no return, right around the corner.
Yeah. Best theme.
Yeah, best theme. Before we get to that, we're going to do book club next week, and then we're going to take 2 weeks off. And yeah, then we'll be back with season 3.
I'm so excited. I do remember season 3 as being the action and where it's all at. Into season 4 as well. But I'm ready. Let's get into the action.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you to Jeremy Siegel for a lovely theme song. You can find more of his music at jeremysiegel42.bandcamp.com.
And thank you to Angry Duck Time Machine on Instagram for our podcast artwork.
And go ahead and throw us an email, whoareyoub5@gmail.com. Join our Discord. And we'll see you next week, Internet.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Appreciate you all.
We'll see you.